got a dammer wrong, my dear friends. Good morning, good evening, good night. It is me, once again, it's Griffin. For those of you who are aware, I retired from podcasting about 6 weeks ago. This is my 4th podcast since then. I can't escape. I am Gruffy. I am the ex-head of the old oil house, now just a lowly foot soldier. And this is Cryptopedia, a look at all the things in the dark, the dirty, the dusty, and the depraved. Oh, as I like to say. Hello, James.
Hello.
My co-host.
Hello, I am James.
You are dark, dusty, depraved, and dirty.
I'm not dark, dusty, depraved, and dirty. No, not at all. I'm very sparkling clean, and the shadows kind of coalesce around me as I'm in this bright white light.
Oh, it's like oil
Yes.
coming off the back of a seagull onto the...
Find no muck on me, son.
No milk.
No muck.
Oh,
No muck on
I was
me.
going to say, no milk, you better not.
Okay.
Get out of my house.
I'm going to kill you. I've long said.
Direct infusion of milk to the bloodstream.
I've been dosing you with dairy for years.
Oh my god, I wonder what this white powder is. I thought I had a cocaine habit, I didn't realise.
I told you it was hand cream. It was butter.
Oh no. Now I'm utterly butterly. And slowly dying.
I am utterly butter.
Wait a minute. I can't believe it's not butter. I thought it was hand cream.
You mean, I can't believe it is butter?
I can't believe it's butter. Look at my hands as they inflate. And my breathing becomes erratic. So, to the listeners at home who may not know who we are, as I say, I am Griffy. I am the man who created the old oil house along with Stu and Rob. I've taken the back seat and now I'm just focusing my strength and time on this dark, depraved look into the rocks of humanity, to the little stories that wriggle within. And yeah, I've got a fascinating interest with this, but we'll get to that. First of all, James, for the listeners outside the world, who are you and why are you my co-host for this little dance down the golden lane of madness?
I am James, and I'm your co-host for this because I said your name backwards and tricked you into saying it backwards as well, and have complete control over you as such. And I said, Adam, make me your co-host for this podcast.
Wouldn't it be Madder make me this?
Madder, I said Madder, yes.
Yeah.
Okay. You've still done it again.
No! God, no, it's... I get fooled with this every
I
time.
told you again, Madder.
Back in the Dybbuk box.
Dybbuk box, yes. So that is one of the things I do is I'm a sort of jobbing DM.
Yes.
Which requires me a lot to look at lots of goblins and buggins and Dybbuks, because I'm using a Dybbuk as a device in my latest campaign.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, yeah. Dybbuk and Golem.
Oh.
Yeah, I know. I was combining the two for some nice Judeo action.
I don't know why, but I feel comfortable with that sentence.
I'm leaving it as a mystery that sounds vaguely anti-Semitic, but we won't dive into it any further than that.
Well, this is already driven off the side of the cliff. Yes, so you're also so you're usually doing a Call of Cthulhu, aren't you?
Yeah, I'd like to stick firmly in the realms of the Cthulhu myself.
Yeah.
That's where I feel most comfortable.
The Cthulian cycle.
Yes, I like my horrors unknown and Stygian.
Ah. There was a joke there that I think probably best to leave with.
I'll keep doing that, I'm very sorry.
No. I'll tell you what the joke is afterwards.
Lead you up to these solid full stops.
Oh no, the mad bus is now out of power again. That's what happens when you use corn. So yeah, Lovecraft, there's a nice little place to start.
Mm-hmm.
Not going too far into it. If you have a fascination with the works of H.P. Lovecraft, please go back through the old Oil House archives. Have a look at those 2 runs of The Lurkers in the Lobby, where me, Andy Millman, and a guest looked through TV and movies based on the works of H.P. Lovecraft. It didn't go well.
I think it was you talking to me about that made me start looking into those films. And if anything, that just tightened its grip upon me. Because I'd always read the books, and I love the characters in the books, but H.P. Lovecraft's writing is stilted. To say the least.
You can't even say it's of its time.
No, it's utterly bizarre. Every one of his characters is a sort of weird autistic journalist.
Yeah, pretty much.
That has or just someone who's, not even that, just someone who's never actually spoken to another person. Yeah. Like his characters don't tend to speak to each other either.
No,
but I do like the beasts. It's the beasts that grip you.
It's the beasts and that sense of overwhelming dread.
Yes,
we are small ants scurrying on the anthill of chaos.
The cosmic inescapability of it all. That's what grabs me.
It's much like the sun going over. There isn't a damn thing we can do about it.
Yes.
And if you think about it too much, you'll go mad.
I also like anything that takes prehistory and just does its own thing with it. So I like Conan too. So.
He's an adventurer.
Let's not go down that
road. Maybe we'll do something with Conan. Unlikely. Maybe one day. Yeah, I mean, Lovecraft's work and Lovecraft's creations are an interesting gateway into what we're going to talk about throughout this, however long season this will be. I think what we'll do for this season is probably have it as maybe 8 episodes, and then we'll come back again down the line if there's enough. If you guys enjoy it, that's the main thing.
If you like us.
Yeah. If you know what's good for you.
If you've not died of a fatal butter overdose.
Yeah, if the butter beasts didn't get you. Oh no. That was the perfect butter beast noise. Well done. Just imagine a shoggoth made of margarine. Just...
Country loft.
Yeah. Yeah, Lovecraft's an interesting way of doing it because Lovecraft's beasts were a lot of horrendously inescapable, unknown monstrosities. And that's a lot of what we're going to be talking about here on Cryptopedia, where it's going to be... Originally the plan was to do it entirely UK-based, but then I realised something with that idea. I realised that there's some really wacky shit out there. Skinwalker Ranch, for example, which I think is an episode that we will do, and that will probably be a 2-parter because Skinwalker Ranch is madness. Do you like fairies and fae folk? Do you like werewolves? Do you like Native American myths and mythology?
I thought you were just going to ask me if I like Native Americans.
I was
going to say a wholehearted yes.
Yeah. Do you like aliens?
Yes,
do you
I
like
do.
Ghosts, demons, lizard men, reptiles from the centre of the earth?
I'll say that I don't like ghosts, but I will talk to you about ghosts at great length and explain why I don't like ghosts. But I will defend that position. I don't like ghosts, and I'll tell you why, but I won't tell you now. I'll tantalise you in that.
Being teased with the dead.
Teased with the dead?
That's a new Nicolas Cage film.
You're all right.
Where's his pants gone?
Do you want me to go slower?
Right, don't answer. Because you're a corpse. I seem to have wanted Heath Ledger's joke. Excellent. A little bit of necrophilia. It's always good for a laugh.
I was going to say, oh, no, I'm not going to say that.
Well, it can't be worse than laugh.
I was going to say, you wouldn't be saying that if you dug him up.
It's nothing like a corpse. You have to spit into to get wet. Moving on.
It's the subject matter. It belongs as... You start talking about beasts and monsters and skinwalkers and vampires and the undead and the dead. The restless dead, you just end up going into sort of dark tunnels. Which is hopefully where we can drag people with us.
Yeah,
down a dark tunnel.
I'm not going to lie to you guys. This is going to get grim. Mostly because all the stuff that I found for future episodes lends itself incredibly well to extreme grimness. To give you such an idea, one of the episodes we're going to do is Aliens on Work Experience. Because there are so many beautiful stories, mostly from Middle America, oddly enough, which is alien abductions gone horrendously wrong. I'm not going to spoil too much because, oh my god, they are beautiful. Gulf Breeze, for example.
Oh, Gulf Breeze.
Gulf Breeze is
that's the one with the group of people, isn't it?
It's one guy who... it looks like he originally faked his...
With his family getting in on it?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that guy is insane. I hope it is aliens because otherwise he's... Jesus Christ, alive.
Well, there's a certain way you can look at it, is where he faked some alien abductions and then was abducted. So,
no one's ever going to believe this.
Oh, not again.
I should watch what I say.
It's almost like the aliens just like, well, son, make a fool out of us, will you?
Yeah. Have you heard what he's been saying about us? He says we've been sticking things up his ass. He's accusing us of being perverts.
It's the idea of part of the story is he's just hanging on to a cow as the tractor beams trying to drag him up.
I tried to do this, but they picked me up and shook me like a dog.
I was shaking like a shaking dog. Yes, so that gives you an idea of the things we're going to be talking about. We're going to really be going down some very, very interesting and grim paths. All to do basically around the topic of cryptozoology.
And some folklore stuff.
And we're going to do a lot of folklore because we share a very large love of folklore. I mean, the Fae stuff, especially the Celtic Fae, some of that stuff is absolutely brilliant. And weirdly enough, a lot of the old Fae stories that you have from sort of the 17 to 1800s ties in with alien abduction stories.
Well, that's a thing that a lot of my favourite writers have sort of explored. Is like maybe maybe these elves and fairies and changelings and quislings, which is also how I refer to one of my very closest friends, Quisling.
Quisling is a great word.
Filthy little Quisling. That they were actually, like, you know, alien abductions. They use that phrase, like, oh, what if the elves are actually from out of space or from interdimensional beings, which I hope is something we do touch on.
Oh yeah, it will be.
Interdimensional beings is something I'm very much
don't worry.
touch on.
There's a Bigfoot episode for the simple reason I fucking love Bigfoot. I can't get over just how much I love Bigfoot.
I know,
every step of the way. When you go from what I believe to be a Norwegian troll that transcended its way from Norway to America, to like went to live in Colorado. Come on, Hurdens, we're going to go live somewhere even nicer. Let's go. And then you get there and all of a sudden crazy rednecks just run around, I saw Bigfoot! Oh, feet are not that big.
Have you ever explored the idea that if he is real, which I know you fervently hope he is?
Yeah, I would like to prefix. I'm a skeptic.
I know, yeah. I think we're skeptics in all these things.
Oh, yeah. All of the stuff we're going to be talking about, I am very skeptical it exists.
I just
love the stories.
I intend at one point to talk in depth about demons, witches, and magic.
Oh, yeah.
And I love all those things. But I in no way believe in them.
Yeah.
I have to stress that as well because I'm sort of respectful.
This comes after the necrophilia jokes. Yeah.
Sort of respectful. He may say things about fucking the dead, but he doesn't believe it. At least he doesn't believe he's got magic powers. He may have dug up those bodies and molested them, but at least he doesn't think he can cast a spell.
He may be running around with half a chicken bleeding onto the corpses, but he doesn't think for a second that he's actually raising zombies.
Well, I've actually got a friend who started getting into magic.
Right.
I got fair play to her. I don't believe in it.
No.
But she's getting into it, and it just fuels my interest in it all the more. Things like that. But it is very interesting, because I like the idea that you can look at it as just an extension of willpower, which is something that I would...
Well, yeah, I mean, if we ever get around to talking about chaos magic, that is pretty much what the basis of chaos magic is, isn't it? It's the idea of making the perfect reality for yourself, changing your reality.
Yes.
L. Ron Hubbard is a master of that, or was a master.
It's also the same stuff as what, like, if you go to a gym with a personal trainer who's very intense, the way they talk to you about doing that type of stuff, that's essentially chaos magic. Yeah. That's someone else. But you put magic on the end of it and you attach it. The ritual is the thing to focus your energy. And then you talk about energy, and then that's the... I reckon as soon as you talk about energy, you lose all semblance of reality.
As soon as you're talking about energy, you're about 3 steps away from
pulling out a crystal.
Just look
at this crystal. Yeah, it's like, but I mean energy not in an esoteric sense. Energy is in the mitochondria, is the powerhouse of the cell, and it creates energy that powers the body forward.
Yeah.
Not energy is in the psychic field that surrounds me, which I use to bend others to my will.
It's a far cry. Well, what you're talking there about is the difference between the Hadron Collider and the energy it expels to prove that the God particle exists,
yes,
and the energy that you're supposed to get from dolphins when you give birth to them.
Oh, you have sex with them like that man did.
Yeah, that's true.
Like that man did when he wrote that book about it, and he's still at large.
Oh, there's a documentary about him on Netflix.
How is he not arrested?
It's just a talking heads of him staring at a camera, telling you about his sexual experience with a dolphin.
Well, the cameraman off screen scrubs himself down with alcohol gel and oh, Jesus Christ alive.
Do you know the worst thing is? That's not the worst story I know about dolphins.
Oh, is this the
flooded house? But the CIA just got a dolphin and a woman to live in a half-submerged house because they were trying to teach the dolphin to psychically communicate with the woman. And to start with, it was all well and good. Then the dolphin became less interested in the lessons. So the CIA said to the woman, start giving the dolphin handjobs. The dolphin...
I don't want to.
Weirdly enough, reciprocate.
I don't, give the dolphin a handjob. I don't want to. Give the dolphin a handjob. I don't want to.
We know where your family are.
Give the dolphin a handjob or you're never leaving the half-wet house.
The half-wet house.
I don't want to give the dolphin a handjob.
Well, it gets better, because after 6 weeks, the dolphin did reciprocate quite nicely and took part in the lessons and whatnot.
Fingered her?
No. Oh, this gets better. But became quite violent at times.
It gets better. Because the dolphin became violent.
Because
your scale of better. What would worse be?
Oh, don't worry, I haven't got to the peak of this tale yet. The dolphin, it went on. It was like, oh yes, I love handjobs. After the handjob, it was quite happy to take part in the lessons and whatnot. Then it was like, oh, it's been half an hour. Another one. So after 6 weeks of this, they thought that the best thing to do was for this woman and the dolphin to drop acid together. So you just got the freaking psychedelic handjob dolphin, a psychedelic handjob dolphin lady.
You'd have to dose it right though, because you've got to be in a good headspace when you drop acid. And if
it's just
if it's 30 minutes late, you're just going to be angry and hallucinating. I would like to be inside the mind of a hallucinating dolphin. Maybe we are already.
Maybe we are. I mean, that's the sort of stuff the CIA were doing in the 60s. There's a really good book called The Men Who Stare at Goats.
John Munson,
yeah, which goes into great detail about the wacky shit, like the general who believed that if he concentrated enough, he could displace his molecules enough to be able to run through a wall, which would be really good until he tested it out and broke his nose.
Yeah, okay. Can we cover psychics and stuff?
Oh yeah, definitely.
I mean, with the CIA stuff, by the way, the guy doing that, Michael Aquino, I don't know if I'm saying his right name properly. He was a Satanist. He was. He was. But he was a bad Satanist. He wasn't a.
Yes.
He wasn't a Levian Satanist. He had his own school of Satanism where he believed all the crazy shit.
Yeah, the sort of Christian, the Judeo-Christian version of Satanism.
Yeah, but he believed in demons and dark magic and controlling people through dark magic and stuff. Whereas Levian Satanism was kind of like, it's kind of. I was telling mate about the tenets of it.
The entire basis of it is
it's a piss take religion.
Yeah,
it's for them to take the piss.
Yeah, it's.
People do it properly because they like taking the piss. They're professional piss artists.
Yeah. I mean, the entire basis of it is do what you want,
but don't be a dick.
Yeah.
Do what you want, but don't be. Like,
don't be a dick to people.
It's got a line in it about not pushing yourself on a woman if she says no.
Yeah.
There's a lot of religions that don't.
I know.
So,
I mean, Satanism. I'm going to prefix this with I'm not a Satanist in any way, shape, or
form. Not Satanist.
It's just one of those things where
have an interest.
Yeah, I like to do research. I like to learn stuff.
I have an interest in Scientology. And I'm not a Scientologist. I know.
L. Ron Hubbard.
So he ties weirdly into it's more science fictiony stuff, but he does Scientology is alien abduction stuff.
Pretty much, yeah. Have you seen Battlefield Earth?
Yeah. I was thinking of making my wife watch it as part of making her watch because I've been making her watch truly horrific horror films, and I thought I'd treat her to just a film that's just shit and fun to watch because it's shit. I can't be making her watch films that are bad but still good, like Hollywood Chainsaw Hookers. It's a film, but it's really good in its own right. It's fun to watch, whereas Battlefield Earth isn't fun.
No, it's also slightly off angle for every
Dutch angles for everything.
I don't know why.
Because the guy who directed it, he was a set designer for Star Wars, and they decided we want it to look just like Star Wars.
Yeah.
And he was a production designer. He wasn't a director. Yeah. He was suddenly directing. So that's what happens. You get Battlefield Earth.
Tell you what, Scientology, it is what happens when a cult just becomes entirely military based. It's a fascinating thing, and L. Ron Hubbard, as much as he was a lying sack of shit, he's got a special place in my heart.
He was a chaos magician.
For all intents and purposes, yeah, he was.
Full-on chaos magician.
I mean, I like the idea that he stole the girlfriend of Aleister Crowley's
disciple,
acolyte. Yeah.
Aleister Crowley is making by the time this gets out, it won't matter. Aleister Crowley is making an appearance in my Call of Cthulhu game.
Nice.
Set in World War II. I'm going to present them with the ability to power up a sigil to defeat a Cthulhu symbol, and obviously it's Aleister Crowley, so they're going to be presented with the option of being bummed by Aleister Crowley to save the world.
There's a way you can make that better. You have a choice. You can go out into the desert with Aleister, or you can go to the cathedral with Rasputin. Pick and choose. Well, there's actually a story of Crowley taking the guy out into the desert and
he bummed him to death, or he
bumped him to insanity.
Well, he bumped him to insanity, but the best thing about that was he did bump him to insanity, but he wasn't the bummer, he was the bummee.
Yeah.
He got bummed until another man lost his mind.
Yes. But I mean, they were way off their minds on POD.
Desert magic.
But you're getting an idea of what this show is going to be. It's I mean, as I said, this is more of an introduction into it.
Oh yeah,
because you guys out there may not know as much of these horrible things as we do.
Devote a larger than is healthy portion of our day to things like this. I can't think if I'm not reading about some monster, if I'm not reading a comic book about some monster, or watching a film about some cult, or listening to a podcast about some cult, or reading a Wikipedia article about some sort of creep, I don't know what to do with myself. I don't tend to read anything wholesome anymore, Adam.
You really should.
I know, I've just realised it now. It's like I've finished all the Terry Pratchett books that there is. There's nothing left.
Still haven't. I still can't.
That's it.
I can't do Shepherd's Crown.
I've put that full stop in, and now it's like, well, there's nothing joyful coming out of the world anymore. Let's explore the black side of things.
Let's just go right down the dark pit.
So, that's all we kind of look at is just
Yeah, it's just one of those things. I've got this weird fascination with it. I think I've got a fascination with how mythology develops.
Yes.
How stories develop from person to person. I mean, for all intents and purposes, urban legends were the mythology of the 50s to about the 2000s. And now things like creepypasta seem to be gaining a lot of strength. So I've got this love of that. Creepypasta not so much, because creepypasta is usually, and then I turned around and the doll was alive.
I would say, I would make a little bit of a defence of creepypastas. It does depend on the creepypasta. There are some truly atrociously written ones, but the ones that get passed around, like, probably people will think I'm a child for thinking this, but I love the Russian sleep experiment one.
Yes.
That's grim, man. That's truly, truly grim, and it's really,
well, I
suppose, really good.
Slender Man.
Yeah, and then he's like become a proper urban legend. Like it doesn't even exist, but there's some people who believe he does.
Yeah, you had the kid a couple of years back, didn't they? That stabbed a friend and then went out into the woods
because Slenderman,
because they wanted to summon the Slenderman. That's insane. But that is the beginnings of mythology. That is the beginnings of these types of stories. The Bigfoot, the aliens, the Fays, all that type of thing. It all starts at a certain nugget point. And I think something like Slenderman, you come back in 100, 150 years, there are going to be people who believe he exists on a widespread scale. It's going to be easier to disprove because we've got so much information.
Well,
now.
not after the fall.
Well, it's all right.
It's 2017 and there's a maniac with bombs. I think it'll be harder to disprove.
Give it a month and he will not be in charge anymore. No, yes, there's certain rumblings happening. That man is going to be gone in about a month.
I won't say any more on him because I can talk about him all day. But
fucking weird troll like that. You want to talk about trolls? There we go.
I think he just. I'll say this and I'll leave it at that. I think he has something genuinely wrong with his brain.
Yes.
And that's all I'll say.
Sociopathic narcissism.
I don't even think it's that. I think he has the early stages of dementia.
You might be right.
I think he has the very, very early stages of dementia. And I think he's too rich that no one steps in and says anything.
It's
like Madness of King George. They just let him do what he wanted.
Yeah.
Just like,
syphilis as far as the eye could see.
Because he's the king and he's rich. He's the king, he's got loads of money. It's a difference like when you're unwell and you've got loads of money, you kind of get left to do what you want.
Yeah. But that's the difference between being mad and eccentric, isn't it?
Oh, that's the thing. Eccentricity. It's like being a drunk and an alcoholic.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Depends how much money you've got.
Oh, here's an interesting one I found out recently. So you go back to Victorian times and you have these great big asylums, right? And they were full of the mad. What were they? What were they suffering from?
I don't know.
Usually, they think it was bipolar.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, mania and then low moods.
Yeah.
Oh, right. Oh, crazy.
So, how interesting is that? That's actually something I think we should mention. We both have not a large background in psychology, but we both have a background in psychology.
Yeah, we both, yeah.
So, a lot of this stuff we can probably... we can probably throw a lot of things like that into the mix.
I do look at that sometimes.
Also, by the way, I was thinking before when you were talking about King George, behind his back they called him King Itchycock. So, get a little too serious there, sir. Yeah, there you go. Knob joke. It's like, oh god, it's like cheese grater on a brick. Oh.
Yeah. Now believes he is a small house overlooking the Nene Valley.
I am not the penguin.
I was going to say something along those lines. A lot of the folklore stuff revolves around the moon.
It does.
And that also goes back with the mental health stuff we kind of briefly touched on, is that werewolves and things like that, and people behaving like animals in the moon, that it might have been a case that anyone exhibiting those sort of signs might have been unwell in some way. But it leads me quite nicely to something. When I was in I'm going to say 9, I'm probably wrong, at school, we had this weird science lesson, right? Where the teacher came in. The teacher came in and he made a woman. And we took her bowling. It was a weird science lesson. 80s music was playing. Judge Reinhold was there.
Weird science.
It's crazy.
But Weird Science lesson, you just watched an episode of Weird Science.
I might have been it. I don't know what happened. This teacher, he was a cool teacher. Well, I say cool. He was one of those teachers that is obnoxious, but you let him get away with it because he sometimes makes jokes about other students that you don't like. Like, he once told us, the bully of our class, if there's another way of labelling him, that if you're a man, you only get urinary tract infections if you've got a small penis. He said this to a year 9 boy. He said this to a year 9 boy in a class full of kids, and he robbed that bully of all his power. We were like, oh, is that true? But anyway, he did this amazing lesson where he got this ranch scientist to come in to the school, and the guy essentially explained things like vampires and Vlad the Impaler and werewolves with science as much as he could.
Yeah.
And his point was, maybe these people back then were exhibiting sort of genetic disorders that are still around today, and people just assign like magic abilities to them.
Yeah, because that's the only thing that you know to attach. At that point, you've got nothing but the sort of folklore and myth to fall back on.
It's folklore and myth. It's trying to explain things. It's explaining the unknown and attaching things to it.
When you go up to somewhere at the top of Coldfell or something like that, you look around and you can see why people need religion. Because if you imagine you go back to the sort of 1300s and you're guiding sheep up there, it's lonely, it's desolate, and even now you can go up there and you will not see another living person. Now imagine that you have to do that every day of the week. You have to like take sheep over the Pennines as well. Think about something like that. You can see why people need mythology. I'm going to, without going too far into it, I think that I'm going to tie the word religion into mythology purely for the storytelling purposes of what we're talking about. I don't mean any insult by that. It's just, I think it's easier for us to discuss what we're discussing without getting bogged down in the specifics of different religions.
And it's fair to say that I don't believe in a religion, but I respect people's rights to have a religion.
Exactly. At the end of the day, your belief is your belief.
Yeah, no.
There is no issues whatsoever with that. It's fine until somebody gets hurt or until it gets pushed onto another person. But that's getting far too serious for what we're talking about. King Itchycock.
Well, I would say, there was a man, right, and he strode up the street and he was... I'm not sure he was an albino, but he was whiter than the walls of this room.
And this room is white.
And he was so bald on his head that I could tell there was not a piece of hair along his entire body. His head was so bald.
Was he actually Caliban?
I thought so. It was. But he was wearing. I stepped out of my house to go to the gym. I looked down the street and I thought death was coming to get me. I thought I was dying. My heart rate jumped to about 200 beats a minute. This ghost of a man, because he was wearing a big hooded robe and carrying a staff and a sack. And I thought, it's death. It's death, and he's come to put me in his sack and take me to hell. I had this massive spiritual moment, and then I noticed that he was actually reaching into this sack and putting things through doors. And I was like, does death advertise? I was just losing my mind as he was getting closer and closer and closer, and he did not acknowledge me. And I thought, death is passing over me. And then he put this thing, and I was frozen to the spot, genuinely thinking I'm going to die. I thought there's something wrong with me. I thought I was touching my face, thinking I'm having a stroke. I had music in my earphones that I could still hear it. But he was going up the street. He went up the street and he came back down that side, and I was watching this guy going, what the fuck is going on? The door of my house wrenches open, and my wife is stood there holding this A4 piece of card that's been glossily printed. It's nice and shiny. It's very well made.
Yeah.
And she goes, what the fuck is this? And she sees him across the street. She goes, fuck off! And she met my wife. She's not like that at all. But she was instantly enraged. And I took it off her, and it was the most batshit insane thing about dying in hellfire.
I wish you brought it with you.
I think I've still got it in my house. I will drag it along one day, but it's because I couldn't. She wanted to bin it, but I was like, no, this is perfect. It was a list of all the things that are going to get us burned in hell, but it was in the most insane language you've ever
heard. Is it the one that has stuff like bikers?
Yes, but refers to everyone as a sodomite. It's not what they are. Yeah. It could be like a man and a woman who live together in sin, sodomites. Only if she says so. But it's like, yeah, that religious man made me think I was going to die. I'm not joking. I did think death was coming for me on silent wings.
Death on Nike sandals.
I thought I've not even got to the gym and I've overdone it already. I'm genuinely upset that only me, I saw him.
Yeah.
My wife saw him across the street, and my mate Chris, who lives across the street from me, when he saw the thing come through his box, he peeked out, saw me and Kate stood across the street, looked down the road, and was like, mouthed. I was very upset that no one else had this fucking, he was ghoulish. He was like a fucking ghoul.
It was the fact that he's gnawing on somebody's leg. He had
a staff. He had a big cross staff. I thought,
Jesus.
Yes! Yes!
Oh man, that's...
don't know what took me on that, but it's just, I think he was talking about religion and just reminded me of that terrifying man. I think that's my one religious experience. And it was an experience.
With Death the Ghoul.
A ghoulish death. He had a skull-like head.
Scruffula.
I'm surprised I haven't seen him around town.
No.
Because he would stick out like a sore thumb.
You really would. That's awful.
It might have been death.
Yeah.
It might have actually been death.
It might have been the Reaper himself. Come to get you.
He's just very judgmental.
What were we talking about before?
I know, I'm sorry, I'm distracted.
The train of thought has been not just derailed,
we had
but
gone
bandits.
down a thing of religion and myth as a way to explain things when you are living solitary lives.
Yeah, well, the original point there was that religion and myth help make a bad life better.
Yeah.
Very much so. And when you've got certain things happening, I mean, you go back to the origins of the vampire. It's Russian or Eastern European, and it actually ties into the Druidic, if memory serves me right, with Lilith. I think she actually got stolen and put into the Bible as well, where her offspring were horrendous creatures that ran around tearing people from limb to limb and drinking the blood. The interesting thing about them, though, is the fact they didn't have the two pointy teeth at the front. It was two sharp teeth on the left-hand side.
Oh.
And if you think about it, that's easier for biting the jugular vein.
Yeah.
So, yeah, interesting.
Yeah.
But that all sort of weird synchronicity, because at the same kind of time, you've got the beginnings of the hopping vampires in Japan.
Hopping vampires?
Oh, yeah. so what is the thing that connects them? What is the thing that... Why is there only maybe 100 years difference between this thing happening in Eastern Europe, the Eastern Europe area, and then over in Asia, something similar but very different also starts to take root? Where is the connection? And I hope that that's something that we're going to look into and find out. Because the sort of rise of these things, I mean, stuff like unicorns, it's a strange little tale, and it spread across the world.
The one I always find hard to believe is there's the constant saying that mermaids came from sailors out at sea for a long time, seeing manatees, and thinking they were beautiful women. And I think that's a stretch. I think you would have to strand me on a boat or an island for a long time before you go to go on the aspects of a beautiful woman and lured me out to the rocks.
They also think it was going back to dolphins as well. The dolphins were the beginnings of it.
No, dolphins are fast, actually. I can see it with dolphins. I can see it with dolphins.
We know the guy has a dolphin. Somewhere Jai is incredibly happy. They're talking about the book that I found. All these things have a basis somewhere, and I think that's going to be a really interesting one to get into, especially when we start looking at the sort of rise of mythology and the rise of the different cryptids and monsters and whatnot. But we're not going to stay within cryptids. It is cryptids mostly, but we're also going to be talking, I think, stuff like Aleister Crowley might be an interesting one-off, just purely because it's mad. L1 Hubbard is probably one that we'll cover as well. Probably call it something like famous nut jobs or something. Not sure yet.
Tricksters and shysters.
Yeah, the majority of it is going to be sort of staying within folklore, mythology, and cryptids.
I definitely want to talk about demons.
Yes.
Raj for demons.
Demonology is a fantastic thing.
It is.
And some people might even do Satan. Because that's
the devil himself.
The old devil himself.
The devil himself. It's a fun thing I like to call people who've slighted me.
The devil himself.
I throw that out like he was rice at a wedding. You sir, you're the devil himself.
But I mean, that's purely because the evolution of how the devil was viewed through the years is fascinating. I mean, if I said to you, what is the first appearance of the devil?
I know it's not the Bible. That's the only thing I do know.
Well, we're talking about it in the sort of Christian mythology.
Are you talking because there's Lucifer, the fallen angel?
Correct.
But he's not really the devil. I know he is. The devil's a complicated one because he is the devil, but there's also various different representations of the devil.
Yeah, Memnoch, and then you've got...
and then you could confuse it also with, Baphomet isn't the devil, but people would see that and say, oh, it's the devil, it's El Diablo, but it's not.
El Diablo.
El Diablo. It's a range of Spanish beer.
And sweets.
And sweets. But that's not the devil. People would conflate that and say that that's the devil, when that's actually... Baphomet, if I'm right, is a... I can't remember what religion it's from. I think it is Sumerian.
Yep.
But I might be wrong in that. But
that's Sumerian and then moved over to Mesopotamian.
Yeah, so it's just one of those early civilizations, predates Judeo-Christian civilization. Predates Judaism. And that's a god, yes, but it was a god of balance, hence his hands are like that. That's why he's up and down. Yeah. And that's been co-opted. That doesn't mean... that statue doesn't mean at all what it's now. Some people use it as a statue to represent the devil.
Mm-hmm.
Some people use that image in like Wiccan and things like that.
Yeah, there's a more pagan.
So finding the origins of these things is very difficult. But you're going to tell me of the devil himself.
Well, yeah, the type thing I was going to go for was how the sort of red horned man. That's actually a very recent creation.
Tim Curry legend.
I wish. I mean, it's like Santa Claus. When did Santa Claus become red, fat, and jolly? About 1960.
Oh.
Seriously. And do you know why he became red, fat, and jolly?
Because Coca-Cola.
Yeah. Coca-Cola needed to trademark an image.
You know the Santa Claus movie with Tim Allen?
Yes.
Is that slavery?
Yes.
Because he has a family in that film.
You know Home Improvements with Tim Allen?
That's slavery.
That's slavery. So have you ever seen Tim Allen in the thing?
He doesn't get paid.
He does not get paid. He gets whipped.
Be more like Buzz Lightyear. I saw that over Christmas and I found myself thinking, he has a family. Are you dying? Is it the butter?
My hands are huge.
It's the...
But alright, so if you go right the way back, the devil as he was back in the sort of predating King James Bible, he was actually blue and about 3 inches tall. He was a Smurf. He looked like Papa Smurf.
Who I've always said is inherently evil.
I'm talking with his beard, blue skin, red hat. Yeah. So it's kind of weird that that's the thing. And the thought process is that red was a easier colour to identify with danger.
Oh, okay.
And that's why you get red. As I say, I'm not going to get into disproving or improving or anything like that. I like the evolution of mythology.
Well, I just want to look at the stories as well. I want to know. I'm in it for the buggins, the beasties,
yes,
and the weird stuff. That's what I will be enjoying.
Yes, off-putting. I hope you've stayed through them. I don't know what they were yet. Let's find out together. It's a mission and a half.
20 minutes of butter.
I can't believe it's not blood. So now what we're going to do for the next sort of half an hour or so is we're going to talk about the stories that kind of stick in our mind to give you a flavour of how we're going to be taking these episodes going forward. So we'll start with James, because I think from the sounds of it, you've got something in mind.
Yes, I didn't, but in our break, one came to me, which kind of hints to me that it is the story that sticks most in my mind. And it is, I read this in, like, I've got a friend of the family who buys me weird books, because she knows I like to read a lot.
Yeah.
As well as the biography of Nelson Mandela, which I did not ever ask for, but I read. As well as giving me that, she got me...
Does it involve Nelson's sack back and crack sack?
It involves his nicking stuff jacket when he's nicking stuff.
Nelson Mandela was a lovely man who did...
And a kleptomaniac.
That's
why he was in prison for so long.
Yes.
Prolific thief.
Prolific thief and peace organiser, Nelson Mandela.
No, he's a very wonderful man, and I don't do his memory any justice.
Up there with world peace supporter and nymphomaniac, Mother Teresa.
Who thought that people suffering brought them closer to God. So when she was raised to sainthood, she was raised to sainthood for people dying in abject misery and pain.
Yes.
So
it's why she walked around with a baseball bat covered in nails. It was,
Don't like that woman. I like Nelson Mandela, even though I implied that he's a massive thief. I didn't imply. I outright said.
You outright used slander.
I just said he's a thief. He's not a thief.
No, Nelson Mandela probably didn't steal anything.
He wrote probably maybe one thing. Yeah, we've all robbed from a corner shop when we were young.
Guns N' Roses, you know. You have their destruction on tape. Stole the inlay card.
I only did like Kinder eggs. You rocking thief. You need locked up. Like Nelson Mandela.
I've got 5 boosts in my pockets and nobody knows.
But as well as the biography of Nelson Mandela, she also got me a book of fairy stories, and I read these things even if I wasn't that interested in it. I always read them. I read A Cat Named Bob, and I'm not interested in about a street cat. But there's a story in it that is... It's a book of fairy stories, and these were based off old English folktales, and this is off an 18th century story about a changeling.
Okay.
And the story is, and remember this, I'm half remembering all this, but I can remember like the crux of the story. Yeah. A soldier comes back from a war, and he goes back to live with his parents, and he has a young son, a young brother, who he expects to be a little boy by now.
Right.
And he goes back to his house, and he's still a baby. And this baby screams and cries all the time, and it's just an absolute horror. and the parents are run ragged. They're utterly crushed and like terrified of this baby. If they raise their voices and talk loud, the baby starts screaming. They live at this baby's whims, and the soldier thinks there's something wrong right from the get-go, and he stays up one night smoking his pipe and drinking in front of the fire, and the baby sits up in its cot and speaks to him, and it's a changeling, and its face takes on this horrible aspect, you know, it gets all pointy little eyes and teeth and ears, and it talks to him and taunts him about, like, essentially how it's torturing his parents and how it's going to burn them out till they die, it's going to run them ragged till they die, and then it'll do the same to him. And he lets this thing talk and talk and talk and taunt him, and then he gets up and he goes to the kitchen of this house and he gets an egg, and he empties the egg out into a bowl, and he has the 2 eggshells.
Yeah.
And I can't remember the bit, but the 2 empty eggshells fascinates the changeling.
Yeah.
And it comes out of the baby, and he traps it in the eggshells and throws it on the fire. Yeah. And when the parents come down in the morning, the baby's gone, and the boy is there, like the toddler that should be there is there. And I love that story, because I've not done it any justice at all, but the actual story itself, even being like quite an old fairy tale, is really atmospheric, and it's like proper evil fairy stuff. Because I like evil fairies. I don't like the idea of them being all nice and twee and things.
Well, no.
I like them being malevolent.
The idea of fairies being the sort of little twinkly force of nature is a Victoriana invention. H.G. Wells is actually one of the people who you can blame, I suppose.
I would blame.
For creating this mythos. As a student, he wrote a couple of stories about fairies, which were fairies being nice, and then he it wasn't Wells that faked the pictures, was it?
Conan, I'm sure, was it not Conan Doyle? He was obsessed with fairies.
Conan Doyle.
He was a spiritist as well.
I think I might have actually got that the wrong way around then.
I don't think he faked the pictures. I think he believed they were real. Like, he fully believed they were real, even when they were like proven to be fake.
As we'll find out as we go along with this show, you'll find that a lot of the people who want this to be real are the people it happens to. Yeah. Which I think is fascinating. It's almost like they want it too much. Yeah. And the people who don't want it and have weird things happen to them, there's little things that you can put that into. Yeah. They've always got somebody who wants it to happen. So you can imagine that being something from childhood that gets... But we'll get into that as the need arises. I don't think there's too much point in getting bogged down right now with that type of thing.
We could get bogged down.
Oh, we could. I'm very well aware of that, which is why I'm trying to keep things punchy. But yeah, the idea that the fairies are a nice thing. For example, there's the myth of the toadstools, the fairy rings. Yes. You do not get into a fairy ring. You do not stand in it.
Because they'll take you away. Yeah. They take you away.
Well, the fun thing about changelings is a lot of the stories that are to do with changelings involves you have to trick the changeling.
Yeah. Well, it's the same with demons and sphinx and things. You have to trick them.
Which ties into a lot of very old Norse mythology, where you have to basically trick the trickster. Yeah. The trickster demons, the trickster gods, however you want to call it. If you trick it, then whatever was taken from you is brought back. When it comes to changelings, it is the baby. Yeah, bring it up. When it's in Norse mythology, it's usually a trinket of great value. In Hindu, I think it's always the sort of grandparents that get taken and replaced. So these things... I was playing that at Lemon. Well, you know, you do seem to have magical powers now, Grandma.
Granddad was a racist. And then the elves, the Hindu elves took him, which he always warned against. He always said that would happen, so he was right. But I'm glad he's gone.
I'm pretty sure the word Hindu fairy will get us into trouble, so let's not go down that path. Let's not. But yeah, the idea of like the fairy rings, the old man willows, all that type of thing, it all revolves around the idea of tricking the trickster. Yeah. Which I think is fascinating. Tying back to what we were saying before, that these things sprang up across the world, almost unconnected. So there has to be a connection somewhere, or is it just a very easy go-to in the human psyche?
Well, I would put that in. I've had this argument, I think, with you and other people before, that there's differences within us, but we're all ultimately the same.
Yeah, barely evolved apes who are hanging onto a dying rock that's falling through space.
Despite some variations on a personal level, we all kind of want the same things, and we all kind of think along the same instinctual lines. Mm-hmm. So there's going to be similarities. There's going to be similarities in storytelling,
especially when you're talking on the wide scale of a sociological basis, where sort of the group mentality all creates. It's almost like a shell, for want of a better term. where one person wants one thing, one person wants another thing, 5 people want the same general thing, 20 people want the same generalised thing, 150 people want the same generalised idea. It gets a bit more amorphous the more people are added, but the general thrust of the basis stays. So the more and more people get involved, the bigger the word of mouth is.
Yeah.
But it's all the same spear point. You know, it's everything connects into this one giant point that creates these types of things. And my metaphor went a little bit awry there, but I hope nobody noticed. Yes, maybe it was a simile. I'm not entirely sure. But yeah, I think that's fascinating. Where you've got like 5 points where in a 200-year basis all come up with a very similar idea, but it doesn't change too much. The very building blocks of the mythology stay, but everything else kind of swaps around depending on the culture.
Well, an interesting thing to look at is, you ever heard of the bunyip?
Yes.
The bunyip.
It's I get one on the foot every night.
The bunyip, which is Australian, and therefore Aborigine,
yes,
and therefore on the other side of the fucking planet, and
yes,
the oldest people on the planet.
Yeah.
Which was saying I was in the guiding the other day that they are the oldest people on the planet.
Yeah, because they
got there and there was no one else.
Well, yeah, you're talking about how the sort of the I don't want to say what the hell they're called, the Homo erectus. Before Homo erectus, there was
Homo facilis.
Well, I'm Homo superior. No, you're Homo sapien. Then before that was Homo erectus, and it was the one before that. I can't remember which one it's called. Which is the one that stood up in the African plains. Science tells us. The one that stood up and was able to use its hands.
Mm-hmm.
The idea is that then found its way onto the landmass that is now Australia before Australia moved.
Yeah.
So the rest of the world evolved in its own ways, whilst they didn't as much.
No, I get that. I think, but the reason that I bring the Aborigines and the Bunyip up, they are a completely separate civilization.
Well, that's what I mean.
Been touched for so long.
They were cut off from the rest of the.
But the Bunyip bears, and I can't remember. I'll do my research properly and I'll get the comparison. But the Bunyip was also another story that appeared in this book of fairy tales, because it wasn't just old English fairy tales.
Yeah.
It had like the changeling. It had like a boggart.
Yeah.
And things like that. I love boggarts.
I love boggarts to bits.
It had, but it also had the bunyip in, and that stuck in my head as well.
Mm-hmm.
Which I think was Aborigine, but it bared such like an almost bang-on comparison with the Native American thing.
Right.
Which was a completely different name, but the bunyip in this story essentially chased this band of hunters from where they found it, killing them until the youngest hunter was able to drive it back, and he got back to the village safe, and they were all like, "Oh, your brothers," sort of thing. And it was essentially the microcosm of the hero's journey.
Yeah.
Spun down into this one little folk tale they told each other. The young boy goes out, fights the bunyip, comes back a hero, but his companions had died. There was an almost exact story, but it's Native American, like Northwest Native American. Yeah. That's insane. That's completely insane. They're separated by the massive body of water with no chance of passing that on to each other.
There's no connection between the two.
And the stories, the beast has a different name, it has a different description, but what it does, that it lurks in water. I want to find it now. I'll have to. When we do the next one of this, I will shout my thing out at the beginning of the thing.
Well, to be honest with you, at some point I think we'll actually hit the sort of the Australian monsters.
The bunyip. I will do the bunyip.
Because there is so much weird stuff when it comes to Australia.
Like the giant raping kangaroo.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, they've got tales of these giant marsupials. These, like, monstrous dinosaur-sized marsupials that pre-exist the kangaroo and all that type of thing. I think there's like a saber-toothed koala or something like that. I like to think it was the drop bear.
Drop bear.
Just hangs in the trees and just waits for something to go by and then just drops on them and devours them.
Drop bear, I'll tell a joke when I do stand-up. Every now and rarely I'll tell a joke about where I pretend to be an Australian man who goes to the bar. I was in the burger shack and I was ordering my burger and bloody drop bear dropped from the rafters and burnt its ass. Drop bear fell on the griddle and burnt its ass. Now a strange thing happens when a drop bear burns its ass. It gets the strength to rip a human man's arm from his body. And that's what he did. So I went to the burger shack and drop bear fell from the rafters and ripped my bloody arm off. I don't know why I did that. I think I was floundering one day on stage, and that kind of just happened. And so then I always do that at home. My wife loves it. She's very supportive of me. If I ever do an Australian accent and pretend to be in a car for a few hours, just talking about what's outside the windows.
He's probably going to hate the fact that I'm going to tell this story, but to completely digress, Stu, who started the lock-in and the old house with me, he once, whilst at work, was messing around with a co-worker and started doing a South African accent. And then somebody asked him for help, and he turned around and kept the South African accent. And then they realised he had to keep the South African accent, otherwise it looked like he was taking the piss. And she kept asking him questions.
I did the exact same thing when I worked at Nick's in the basement. I was talking like this when we were sorting clouds, and I was going, "Oh, I fucking hate this job, it's crap." And the regional manager came downstairs, and he went, "Hello everyone," and I went, "Oh, alright!" And then realised I had to keep talking like this till he'd left. And on my honeymoon as well, I was very drunk in the lift with my wife, and I was talking like this, and a lovely young couple got into the lift, and they went, "Oh, my wife's English." Well, I'm English. Yeah. And they went, "Oh," to my wife, "You're English. Are you English? We're from the colonies," in a very, very South African accent.
Yeah.
And they went, "And where are you from?" And I went, "I'm a driving instructor from Johannesburg." For no reason.
The horrible thing is, I am actually South African. If I choose to be.
Choose to be. It's a choice. It's always a choice.
Hey, right now I can go for dual citizenship. Sure. It seems like a decent idea, to be honest. What, the country that's full of race?
If you don't bring a South African folktale, I'll be fucking furious.
Oh no, we will be touching on...
Absolutely fucking furious.
We'll be touching on South African folktales and stuff.
That is an area I actually... rather insensitively know nothing about. I think I know a few I know a few from like India. I know a few from Australia. I know quite a bit of Native American stuff. Mm-hmm. I like my European stuff, obviously. Yeah. I don't know any African ones or from that continent.
We'll do an episode.
That would be fun to research.
Yeah, we'll do an episode of that because there is some great stuff in South Africa and its mythology and its basis. But yeah, no, we'll digress. So myself,
yes,
I'm going to tell you the tale. Purely because this is the thing that got me wanting to do this. And now, originally, I wanted to do this maybe 3 years ago. But time, unfortunately, was not on my side.
And I've realised time is running out. And I better do it before
I die. It's more the fact that...
you can feel the cold, ice-white hand of death.
No, that was you.
No, shit, not again.
So, basically, this is the cowman of Copolis Beach. Now... I'm not going to go through the entire story. I'm just going to hit you with some of the points that stuck in my mind. Okay. Mostly because if you go through the entire encounter tale, as you can see here...
Jesus Christ alive.
Oh yeah, this goes on for weeks. It is fascinating. Now, the chances are that this is entirely made up and is actually an early version of a creepypasta.
I would argue then that all stories are early versions of creepypastas.
That's a good point. But what I'm saying is that this wasn't originally set out into the world as a sighting. This was set out into the world as a piece of fiction.
Okay.
I am actually going to do this story for Riveted Sounds at some point because it is such a great tale. It's brilliant. It's set in the 1970s. And basically, family, they inherit a farm, move to it, and for the first year or so, everything goes quite nicely. You know, they've got the animals are getting fed, getting sent off to slaughter. Lovely things. Okay. The crops are getting pulled in. The guy who is running it, he works in a timber yard, so he's going off to a timber yard, then coming back doing farm work. His wife's got, she's basically managing farm hands, getting all that done.
Managing farm hands, eh?
Oh, yes. Yeah. It's in the same way that the woman was doing the dolphin. I can't get that out of my head. I've tried for like 8 years, it won't leave. But after a year or so, weird things started happening. They kept hearing noises during the night, and it was the sound of a cow. Now, they found this weird because they didn't actually own a cow. They owned sheep.
I was going to say, imagine if you were darling, can you hear that cow? It's like, we're a dairy farm, you fucking idiot. No, I can hear a cow! Yes, there is 800 of them in the barn. Shut up!
Which would be my nightmare. Oh no, I've been locked in a dairy farm.
That's the only way to get out. You must milk all of these cows with your mouth.
They've bricked up the doors and the windows.
If I was ever to saw you, as in the movie Saw, that's what I would do.
I'm thinking more like the film 1408, where you just turn around, all the windows and doors have been bricked up, and there's just like the map with the room, and then cows just everywhere. Just like a sea of butter.
If I put you in a room and replaced all the door handles with actual cow udders that were full of milk, and the only way you could get out was to empty them with your mouth. It's a rhetorical question, so you don't have to answer it.
I would go down what I have named the Silent Hill response, which is lock the car door and wait to die.
Sit in the room and wait to die.
Yes.
But they'd just be staring at you all pink and flashy. It's just a bit of milk.
I might just like punch him a couple of times.
The door lets out a pleasured moan.
This isn't the D&D game. This is like the weirdest D&D game ever.
The door lets out. You've never played one of my D&D games.
You've never played one of mine.
That's true. That's true.
No, trust me.
We'll have to do that.
I think so at some point. But yes, anyhow. So it starts off, there's these noises at night. And the mother walks along and she's like, is it coming from the kid's room? And she opens the door really quietly. And her two sons are sitting there. And they're like going, moo, moo. What are you doing? We're just talking to the cowman, mummy. And from outside the window, she just hears a moo, moo.
It's a real shame that people can't see my face because I'm utterly horrified.
It's like, what the hell's that? It's the cowman. He comes to the window every night. And he just makes mooing sounds at us. And we make mooing sounds back at him. What?
Not being funny, if my kids told me that, I would think there was a sex offender outside. I'd be like,
Jimmy Savile.
I'd be like,
John,
well, let's call the police.
That's what this one thinks. It's a guy. You know, it's some weird guy, like some vagrant or something. Some drifter. So she's like, yes, husband. They look around and stuff. And there's nothing. And they go back. Like, if you hear that again, come and tell us. Let us know. So the next night, comes along and the youngest comes. Oh, you the cowman's back. It's like, more. They go through and they have a look to see what it is, and once again there's nothing there, but she's a bit freaked out, so she says, come on kids, you're going to sleep, and us, you're going to sleep with us, and she's getting the kids moved up. There's like, moo. Well, she turns around and there's this big black shape against the window, like blocking out the moonlight, and this big hairy hand smashes through the window and like tries to grab hold of the kids. She gets him out. Husband gets the gun and he runs out to try and find this thing. It's nothing. And over the next couple of weeks, every night they hear the sound of something by the kid's window, and it sounds like it's trying to get them out, but it's not getting any sound. And they actually say that the sound that it makes is quite sad. It's like, it sounds like it's sad that it's not getting the noise back. One night the guy goes out, he's got his gun ready, he's had enough. He goes out, he knows it's around, he can hear it and he can smell it, because the smell is gigantic. And this is the bit that sticks in my mind. He walks out into the middle of the field. There's a barn off to one side and he can't see anything. He thinks, whatever the hell's going on, shall I get the police out? As he turns, about 9 foot in the air, you see two red points of light just staring at him. And he realises that it's its eyes. He takes a shot, nothing. The thing just scatters. And from that point, there are a few other, I've shortened it right down, but there are a few other things. But from that point, it seems to have vanished. Now, the idea seems to be that this thing was female, and it wanted the kids. It wanted to have children. And it was trying its best, because there's loads of stories in there of it trying to grab the kids and trying to get the kids to come away from the house.
Another thing is the theft of children.
Yeah, because it's a parent's fear.
Yeah.
It's a massive parent, especially when you think about you go right the way back to...
But that's weird though, because if you think that in the old stories there's a lot of theft of children, and like the Changeling, it's about nicking children, children disappearing.
Yeah.
And there was another explanation for that I read in a novel, and it was adapted from a fairy tale, like an old folk belief that that you'd take the baby that was sick and you'd leave it out, and the fairies would heal it, but the baby would die, and it was like they knew the baby was going to... But that's weird that so many of the fears were around children going, when really children died all the time.
Well, that's the thing, the fear of the healthy child going.
Aye,
it's especially if you look at the sort of Middle Ages, where families would be quite large, not through the need for a large family, because it's more mouths to feed and it's actually more difficult. But for that hope that at least one of them would carry on. Yes, that trying to get your line to continue, trying to get your genetics forward. That thing that's very deeply ingrained in all living creatures. So when you've got quite a large, shall we go for the animalistic version and say a litter?
Yeah.
At least one will carry on,
yeah.
Hopefully more. Because having large families, especially in the Middle Ages, if you are a pauper of any kind of description, it's a bad idea because you have so many mouths to feed.
And you're also more likely to die in childbirth.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
But try and get that line across because we are beholden to our own genetic structure. So I do love the cowman tale.
It's weird. I've never heard that before.
Yeah.
That's actually genuinely. I was actually chilled by the cowman.
On the other hand, when we get to Bigfoot stories, you'll understand the joy of "That's my placenta," which is the greatest thing I've ever read in a Bigfoot story. Oh my god! Is there any others that spring to mind?
When you mentioned Middle Ages, one that immediately sprung to mind was, and it upsets me that I don't fully remember the name of this, but I'll tell you the story about. It's a town with a castle. Because this is the Middle Ages.
Yes.
And there is a large body of water, or I think a well. I'm poorly remembering this, but the imagery is stuck in my mind. And there's a well, and none of the villagers can use the well. There's something in it that pulls them in and kills them.
Mm-hmm.
And
it's the lamprey worm.
Yes! That's the thing, isn't it? I love that story.
Yeah.
Mainly because the image of like the knight in the spiked armour is hacking at this thing.
All this armour so you can't get a grip on it.
That's a proper Middle Ages story. Yeah. That's absolutely brilliant.
I love the sort of MacGyver technique that he goes for. Where it's
going to grapple me, so I will fight against. That's a proper D&D way of solving something.
Yeah, just welding spikes.
I want spikes to my armour. Fine, you do that, but you do it poorly.
Well, let's not discuss the Freudian things of grappling a worm to death. But yeah, the lamprey worm's a great tale.
That's an amazing story.
Mm-hmm.
Is
it lamprey or lamprith?
Lamprith, it might be.
Lamprith.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I was wondering where those dragons. I can always see where they've come from because you find dinosaur bones. And
yes.
There's going to be some Roman or Viking or Saxon or troglodytic cave person who's found a dinosaur's skull and gone, well, what was this from it?
Yeah.
That's scary. And built up a thing of and just their imaginations run wild.
Well, what's interesting there is how dragons change from area to area.
Chinese, Asian dragons compared to European dragons. Yeah. That's insane.
And where Asia is meant to have had a lot more dinosaurs that went back to the sea. Long. Yeah. Makes sense.
No,
makes
it was
sense.
there, so I can see where I can see where dragons came from quite easily. It's like I might be wrong. I might one day get a chance to talk to someone from Middle Ages and go, so dragons, what do you think about them? And they'd just be like, what are you talking about? You were a child. They don't exist. Because there's a part of me that thinks, oh, they must have believed all this thing, but then there's also a large part of me that thinks, there's got to be people who'd be like, no.
There's probably more people who are alive now who believe in flat Earth theory than there was in the Middle Ages.
Shaquille O'Neal
believes
in flat Earth theory, and I'm not a basketball fan, but that upset me.
Oh yes, he was in Space
Billy
Jam.
Corgan believes in chemtrails, and I firmly believe it's that belief that's ruined his life. Like, I'm not a massive Smashing Pumpkins fan by any means. They have the odd hit. But he is fully bald. He's wasted all of his money. I don't want people to think that I hold baldness against people. Because I've complained against 3 people that are bald.
As he walked down your street tonight, people.
But he's a full-on chemtrail conspiracy theorist, and that's... Are we going to touch conspiracy theories in general?
I think conspiracy theories will be an episode we do.
Because you could put that under folktales as well.
Very much so.
Beliefs that people can't check.
Have you ever watched a video on chemtrails?
Yes.
Holy crap.
Sorry,
they're clouds.
It's upsetting.
They're clouds.
Because also, as a conspiracy, what gets me is that as a conspiracy theory is with other conspiracy theories, you've got to kind of pick stuff out and identify stuff. Like when people say that somebody hooked a conspiracy theory and stuff, they spend ages going, "Oh well, that kid looks like that kid that was in an advert, so clearly it's an actor." We've caught them out, people. Chemtrail conspiracy theorists go out onto their porches, look up at the sky, and go, "Oh, there's the chemjets again." Like. It's the most blatant conspiracy. There's not even an attempt by the people committing it to use stealth planes or something. It's like, there's those chem planes again.
It's a Boeing 747. It's also making vapour, which is basically a cloud. It's a fucking cloud.
I'll tell you a conspiracy story that I love.
Mm-hmm.
It's not about it isn't a conspiracy theory, although I'll tell you my mum's conspiracy theory. This is my mum's homegrown conspiracy theory.
Right.
I'll do this after my other story, because I think it's genuine insanity on behalf of my mum. She's not mentally ill or anything like that, but it is genuinely the craziest fucking thing I've ever heard out of a human mouth. And I thought she was saying it to wind me up, but no, she believes it. But I'll get to that.
Okay. This is, you keep us on tenterhooks.
This is a story of a woman who survived the 7/7 bombings.
Mm-hmm.
And she obviously was very traumatised by this, and she was featured in news articles, and she became like a sort of face for survivors. Young woman survived. So she was featured in news articles. She somehow stumbled onto one of the news articles and saw commenters who were 7/7 deniers, much like 9/11 truthers.
Yeah.
And they were saying she was an actress. And so she got into a heated debate with them on the internet, and she went onto their forum, and they fully attacked her on that, and accused her of being an actress, said she was a shill, said all this stuff to her, made her feel wretched. She was genuinely upset, and decided to confront them. As it would happen, a group of them met in a pub in London, like an upstairs room of a pub in London, where they would discuss uncovering the truth of this conspiracy.
Right.
She, having posed as a member of this forum for a long time, found this out, went and confronted them, presented herself and said, look, I'm here, I'm real, I'm a real human being, I was on those trains when the bombs were going off,
right.
Look, I'm here. They explained to her, rather nicely, how she wasn't on the trains when they happened. She may have thought she was on the trains, but she's an actress who's been brainwashed. So they either said she was here as an actress trying to convince them, because they're that important. So they were saying like, oh, you're only here to try and trick us, you won't dissuade us from the truth, you're wrong. Or there was the other lot saying, no, you've been brainwashed, you're a trained professional actor, and you've been brainwashed to think this. It didn't happen, you were never there, bombs never went off, you've been hypnotised to think it happened. And she lost her cool.
As you would.
Yeah, you don't exist to your face all the time. Yeah. She lost her cool, and she got very upset, and it kind of drove her into a depression, unfortunately. But that's my favourite story of like the intractability of conspiracy theories, is because you have to you can't persuade someone against a conspiracy theory. They've got to come out of themselves.
It's like trying to
get someone out of a cult.
Well, it's like trying to tell somebody who voted Leave to Brexit that it was a bad idea.
It's not working. We're all going to die.
It's a terrible, terrible idea.
Let's all jump off this cliff.
You've made a horrible mistake. No, I haven't. It'll make Britain great again.
Scotland's
leaving.
I reserve the right to be fully smug and demand an apology when it all goes wrong.
When we're all living in the streets.
When it all goes wrong, when GDP drops massively, I demand an apology from Boris Johnson.
When India becomes a higher rated nation than we do.
I hope we try him for high treason.
I hope we try him as a witch. It doesn't connect to the crime at all, but I want to try Boris Johnson as a witch.
My mum's conspiracy theory.
Yeah.
Now, I think this is amazing. When she first told it me, I did think she was winding me up. But my mum doesn't wind me up. She infuriates me and puzzles me. She doesn't wind me up. She's not a wind-up merchant.
Yeah.
Although she did once tell me she died. This is your sister. Mum's been in an accident on April Fool's Day.
Right.
But literally, it was April Fool's Day, but I believed it for a bit, and then my brain kind of was like 1 a.m, because she stays up till April Fool's Day comes about, and I was like, why would my sister be using my mum's phone to tell me my mum had died? My sister has my number. But anyway, I pieced it together. Detective work.
Well, hopefully that's something we're all going to be doing here.
She, after watching the film about his life, where Eddie Redmayne played him, there's a line in the film where the doctor says, Stephen Hawking, sorry. Eddie Redmayne played Stephen Hawking.
Yes.
There's a line in the film where the doctor says to his wife, oh, he'll be lucky if he lives past 30. How old is Stephen Hawking? Like 60 odd?
Yeah, he's well into his 60s. Late 60s, I think. Yeah.
Believes that Stephen Hawking is putting on his illness.
You what?
Because he isn't dead. Because he is not dead yet, he can't possibly have cerebral palsy. And he's putting it on, and that when people are out of the room, he gets up and he has a little stretch and he walks around. And she said this, and me and my wife sat and looked at her, and we were like, fuck off. Fuck off. Because she said stuff to me like, do you believe the moon landings were real? To wind me up. Because I'll go off on one going, yes, they were real. Yes, they were real. We went to the moon, for fuck, why have we not been since? People have been to the moon since. People go into space.
People have been to space.
I haven't been to the moon.
We've never been to the moon.
I have to fudge the facts to prove it. Because otherwise, if I don't have evidence, she'll go, oh, well, maybe. I don't want her to start believing the moon landings aren't real. She already believes that Stephen Hawking dances around the frigging room, but no one's in there. I'm not having her sat at home going down a conspiracy hole.
I have the same theory, but about Professor X.
When she went to Australia for 3 weeks very recently, I thought she'd joined a cult. She was sending pictures of us sat around with all these hippies, and I genuinely was like, she has joined like the Children of God or something. I thought, she's not coming back.
No, God. No. Oh dear.
I love my mother, but I think she's very susceptible for joining a cult. I think if anyone in my family would join a cult, it would be my mum. I expect sometimes for Scientologists to be in my front room. Do you want me to tell you the story of the lesbian psychics?
Go on then, yeah.
I tell you, my mum, I don't know how, she meets all sorts of people through no fault of her own. And we had this lesbian couple who were psychics. Mm-hmm. And they would tour the country doing psychic readings. Like not like that Susie woman or Colin Fry style.
Not like the full-blown parasites.
Yeah, no, I think it was still quite parasitical.
Yeah.
But they seemed to genuinely believe that. We also had a woman who kept a horse on our stables, right? And she would ask the horse what it wanted to eat using a crystal. Fucking crystal. She would dangle the crystal on the end of the pendant and ask the horse what he wanted to eat. Hay? Or would you like some of your special sugar beet? Hay or sugar beet? And she would shake this crystal, and then she would go, ooh, looks like it's sugar beet. And I would just stand there going, for fuck's sake. I'd have to help with this horse. For fuck's sake, just give the horse some fucking sugar beet and leave it alone. You've been dangling this. It's a horse. Its eyes are on either side of its head. And it's trying to turn its head going, what's that? What's that? It's a fucking crystal. But anyway.
It's looking for the predator.
These,
by that I mean something that's going to kill it, not the alien hunter from space. Yeah.
These psychics had come to pay my mum rent for what they were storing with her.
Yeah.
And they were chatting in the living room, psychic stuff. Lots of psychic stuff. Ghost traps. But, so they were telling my mum what they did for a living, and they made their money off this. Mm-hmm. And she went, yeah, we do psychic readings. We look for ghosts around houses. And Mum went, oh, really? Oh. Because Mum always blames stuff on a poltergeist, not Alzheimer's, which is what it is. Alzheimer's, the unfriendly ghost.
Oh, there's no Casper to be found.
Where's my keys? Oh, Mum. It's like poltergeist again. It's not. It's not. Why's my handbag in the fridge? It's like poltergeist again. Oh, Mum. But anyway, watching this steep decline. But, their psychics offered to do a reading of our house.
Right.
Our house is a barn. It was never a house. Okay. It was a barn. But they went from room to room of this house going, ooh, there's a man here on this landing. A landing that had never existed before. There's a man on this landing, and he's wearing, like, tights. I thought he's a cross-dresser. He's wearing, like, tights and a ruff. Ooh.
Dirty, filthy pervert.
And I sat downstairs listening to all this. And I was sat in the lounge, and at the time, my grandmother, who I did not like, I'm not going to go into that.
That's fine. That's
statement of fact as to why my reaction was as it was. I did not like her. Didn't care for
her. That's fine.
They came into the living room and was going, I can feel something in here. And they went through our living room and they opened the door to my grandmother's little atrium apex thing. And they stepped in and the psychic threw up her hands and she went, and she threw up her hands, took a deep breath, and my nan sat there in the TV, deaf to the world, watching the TV as loud as she can, just this big fat old woman watching television. The psychic goes in and goes, a horse died in here. A horse violently died in here. And I was sat in the room just going, it's just me nan.
That's horrible. Some horrible syphilis-based death.
It's like this. They were saying it was like this thrashing death of the horse. You go, that's really shook me up. And I was like saying, don't let them get over not paying. Don't say the psychic shock of the horse. Oh, I forgot my purse because that dead horse.
A sheep just got there and
grotting the sheep in here. But that's the. I know. I remember actually. It's weird how much of this stuff. I'm actually just realising now how much crazy occult stuff has actually coalesced around my family. My mum used to have tarot cards as well.
Oh no.
Yeah, she doesn't believe, but she swears down she doesn't believe in them.
Yeah.
But I actually have a distinct memory of finding this deck of cards when I was tiny and pulling out, and the first one I pull out being the devil card. And it was a horrifying drawing of the devil.
Yeah.
And I think that's haunted me my entire life. It was a truly terrifying depiction. It said, El Diablo. And I didn't know what that meant at that age. But it was this horrible red-horned man with a pair of tits. And I think that truly shattered my psyche. That's the way I am today.
Yeah. But that's the reasoning. Yeah.
A friend of mine, it would be interesting to talk to him because he would have some amazing stuff to tell us. He went and did a documentary when we were in university on his grandmother. Mm-hmm. And I had always known his grandmother through the stories that he told of me, that she was a mean old lady who used to chase magpies with a mirror. That's all I knew of his grandmother.
Magpies with a mirror?
She would chase magpies away with a mirror. She'd see magpies in her garden, she would chase them off with a mirror.
Because magpies she also steal something shiny, the shiny thing being your soul. Yeah, alright. Okay.
And she also kept his first ever baby poo in a jar in her house to keep him safe. And he told me that story, and I never put anything together. Like at university, I just didn't put it together. Then he went and did this documentary about her, and another friend of mine who went to make the documentary with him was telling me all this crazy shit. She was in Aleister Crowley's Inner Circle.
You're shitting me.
No. She was like a member of the Golden Dawn when he was in the Golden Dawn, and she split off with Aleister Crowley and was doing stuff with him when he was in England, because he dodged around the place.
Yes, he did.
I'll see if I can get in touch with him and ask him more stuff about it, because that would be very interesting. I
remember
Lewis telling me about his mum was telling him all this stuff about the Golden Dawn and stuff. So I kept that in the back of my mind for ages. Like, that's really interesting, yeah. And then I read more about Aleister Crowley and more about that type of magic. Mm-hmm. And then it wasn't even that long ago, I had this sudden realisation when I was sat up in bed, I was reading a book, and I had this sudden sparkling realisation. His grandmother probably went to orgies.
Yeah.
To do magic.
If she was in the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn.
His grandmother was probably engaged in weird, twisted sex magic.
She'll have had two men up at the same time.
I know. I don't think that's ever entered his head. So obviously I texted him this. I had to tell him. Guess what your grandmother did? But I think I phrased it wrong because it made it sound like I'd witnessed her do it.
I just built a time machine.
Listen, your grandmother get absolutely railroaded by Aleister Crowley.
There was a queue.
He just kept saying his name.
Oh, freaking hell.
Sorry, I've gone down such down such a path of just weird shit.
It gives people an idea of what's coming. So I'm going to finish this off then with my personal favourite.
Yes, go.
And this is something we're actually going to get into more depth later on, because it is something I would like to mine the shit out of. And it's Spring Heel Jack.
Yes!
Spring Heel Jack, I originally came across way back when I was maybe 8 or 9 in like the Bumper Book of Monsters or something like that. And it has overtaken things like Tengu, which is a thing I love to bits. I love Tengu. Tengu are amazing. Spring Heel Jack is just incredible. And I can't explain to you why I love it so much, other than this was an absolute prick of a creature who just ran around being a prick.
Spring Heel Jack, do you like the idea that it is a man dressed as in this costume with spring boots, or that it is a beast?
I don't know. I've got a couple of different things that I've come across over the years, which I loved a bit. The idea that Spring Heel Jack is a title that is given to different people. So, I mean, when was the last Spring Heel Jack sighting? 1910. So that's 200 years of Spring Heel Jack. There hasn't been one since for some reason. I think he fell out of favour. But the idea of like this guy who managed to make something that allowed him to jump and run and breathe fire and slap women in the face. Which is what he did.
It's just a fucking demonic misogynist.
Pretty much. Slappity slap, I'm Spring Heel Jack. Boing. Spring Heel Jack's just weird though.
I knew about Spring Heel Jack, but I didn't know he just slapped women.
Oh no. He did one of three things, and it was always aimed at women. Oh no, I'm not joking. He would slap them in the face. He would rip open their tops.
Spring-heeled pervert.
Oh yeah, or he would breathe fire into their faces.
He was a full-on spring-heeled misogynist.
Yeah. There was only 2 reports of him actually attacking a man. One of them being a policeman that was chasing
him. He had long flowing hair and a full bosom.
He attacked a policeman who was chasing him, breathed fire into his face, and he attacked a man who was walking after dropping his lady at home. And once again, breathed fire into his face, which is weird. I mean, my favourite story. I say favourite. It's not like I idolise this man at all. It's just the image.
You're going to bring him to Carlisle. You will become Spring-heeled Jack.
Slappity slap! I'm Spring-heeled Jack.
Stop slapping with women.
Everything, man, women, dogs. I'm Spring-heeled Jack. Ba-ding, 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 ba-ding. I've gone down a...
You had inhabited the character there. You weren't going to come back from that. I was getting him to leave.
You can't leave. I've replaced the door with fire.
Oh, and I've just replaced it with another.
Burning udders. You can't stop me. I'm Spring Hill Jack.
I thought you said...
Let's figure it out.
Say no.
I'm ready for Mr. that. My favourite story is the idea that there's a knock on this door, and we're going to, as I go into this in greater detail when we sort of hit the Victoriana monsters. Knock on this door, and the woman of the house, the lady of the house, opens the door, and she's like, "What's happened?" And there's a man with a ill-fitting policeman's uniform, and he says, "We've caught Spring Hill Jack. Bring light, bring light." And she grabs hold of a lantern and says, "Here you go." And he goes, "Thank you," and then breathes fire from him, like from his mouth, through the light onto the lady. And then when she's like, trying to like put the fire out and rolling around, he just goes and gives her a boot. But that's it. That's all he does. He then giggles and jumps into the night.
He just gives her a kick. Aha! Aha!
I've got nothing better to do tonight. I'll burn you then kick you. I'm Spring Hill Jack. Slap this.
My face! Falls to the ground.
Whack! Time to add insult to injury.
I'll teach you to mess with me. I didn't do anything.
But you might have. Spring Hill Jack. Away. There's something about the idea. It's in the same way that Jack the Ripper kind of took hold of the populace of Whitehall at the time. There's something about Spring Hill Jack as almost like a virus. Once the story began, there was no stopping it. So all these tales come out from all over the place. I mean, the idea that Spring Hill Jack turns up...
It's a meme.
Oh, pretty much.
It's a meme,
yeah. It's a proto meme.
Yeah.
The idea that he would either be seen wearing like a policeman's uniform, like an opera cloak and suit with an opera mask, or a bear's head.
I wouldn't put anything past him though. You could tell me that he turned up dressed as a giraffe, and by what he sounds like, he's just a prick.
Like Spring Hill Jack, massive
I'm
cock.
dressed as you. What? Fire!
Pretty much.
Who are you?
I see whether we go to the same tailors.
Spring Hill Jack.
Slappity slap away!
Stop turning up dressed as me. Stop hitting my wife.
I didn't just turn around and hit the grandmother. Spring Hill Jack, you can't stop me. You're not supernatural at all, are you? You're just a colossal prick. Yes! Yes, I am.
I don't know if I like the idea of him being a supernatural prick or just a cock. Just a man with too much time on his hands.
Well, I think that if Spring Hill Jack existed, it was a group of people who were... They took the title of Spring Hill Jack to basically cause havoc and anarchy. But never really did much with it other than be colossal pricks. I mean, the idea of Spring Hill Jack, the legend is so strong that they could have done something with it. But
yeah.
Just slap people and breathe fire.
I think that shows that if it did happen, it was definitely people.
Yeah.
Right, we're doing this now. What should we do?
Smack! Alright, man, what we're going to do is, right, we're going to slap him in the face and we're going to run away.
People do that today.
Yeah, happy slapping. Yeah.
Happy slapping, yeah. That's for you. 200 years later, Spring Hill Jack.
You just sit back, marvellous. My pattern is coming to work.
I found it on my Nokia. This is fucking great.
What is that magic box you have there, sir? I got it from the future. It's my Nokia razor.
Nokia razor?
Stop! Oh! I'll get you, Queenie! Yeah, so Spring Hill Jack, he's a fantastic monster, and I hope to really delve deep into that one. I think that's going to do us for tonight.
Yeah.
I hope you've enjoyed this as much as we have.
I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Yeah, racist overtones accepted. James.
I didn't say anything racist. I said Nelson Mandela steals. Like, you tell me why that's racist.
No, because we're saying that. Yeah, let's move on. So you can find this show at www.oldoilhouse.co.uk. You can find us on Facebook. I think we'll probably set up a Facebook page or group to go with it, just so you guys can get involved and send us things that you like. I think that'd be quite a lot of fun.
Yeah, give us stuff to look at.
Yeah, definitely.
What did we say we were going to do for the next one?
I think the next one, you wanted to do ghosts.
I do want to do ghosts.
Yeah, so...
And my problems with them.
Yeah, so I think you're going to do ghosts.
I'm going to do ghosts.
And then the one after that will be aliens on work experience.
Aliens on work experience, and then are we doing Victoriana? That's our rough plan, isn't it?
Yeah, then it could be Victoriana. And if you guys are enjoying this, then once we've done these initial 5 episodes, we'll come back and do another load. It's entirely up to you guys. I hope that you guys tell us what you enjoy about this.
And you get some out of it as well.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, to be honest with you, I'll keep doing these for a while, because this is something I've got a vast interest in. and after 300 episodes of pop culture stuff, I think this ties in quite nicely with the beginnings of pop culture. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to this. I think this will be a lot of fun. So, all that being said, James, is there anything that you wish to pimp?
I have a Tumblr blog where I write short stories. It's called Delicious Sydney. It's where I keep all my short stories.
And those short stories are slowly
coming towards Riveted Sounds, where they've been spoken by your wonderful self. And there's my brother has turned a few of them into comics because he's a very talented artist. So.
Spot on. So yeah, and Riveted Sounds, of course, you can find at rivetedsounds.co.uk, where there will be more audiobooks than you can shake a stick at because they're starting to come through now. Other little bugs in the system have been worked out, and a lot's coming. Also, you can find me on Audible. The Digital Children from the Grave to the Cradle is now getting released by the time this comes out. So please go and have a look at that. Download it, buy it. If you get free Audible credits, download it. Tell me what you think. Also, if you download it, I get money, which is nice. So with that all being said, I think it's time for us to get out of here. So, thank you very much, Mr. James.
Thank you, Adam, for having me.
And got it, Amarum!